I'm wrapping up our project here for today. Just engraving our name on a piece of wood. It doesn't take too long. Where are we at here? I'm 1:53 seconds in and I just finished. So this is what we're doing today. This is what we're going to end up laying out on Adobe Illustrator. So let's go ahead and get started with a new file. I'm going to go to File and New. Make sure that you name your project something that you'll recognize. So like first initial, last name, and nameplate. If you have a long last name, just abbreviate it like first 3 letters. Otherwise, you won't be able to read your name of the project on the laser engraver, the display. Make sure the width is 24, the height is 18, units is in inches. If your units were in something other than inches and you put in 24 and 18 and then you change it to inches, it converts the value, so then you got to go back here and change this to 24 and change that to 18. So just a heads up on that. We'll hit OK. Here's our artboard. This artboard is the actual size of the bed of the laser engraver. 18 by 24. What we need to do is we need to lay out where our board is going to go that we're going to engrave our name on. So hit Control R to bring up the rulers. You're going to grab a guideline from the top and drop it at 0. I always like to drop it at 0 so that when you look up here you can easily distinguish which coordinate X or Y it is that you need to change. So the Y is the one that's 0, so that's the one we need to change. Our boards are 1.5 inches wide. They're actually a little bit less than that, anywhere from 1.5 inches to 1 3/8 inches, but it's not going to make that big of a difference. I'm going to drop a guideline on the 0 here for the X. Change our X value to 12 because our boards are 12 inches wide. And this is the layout of our boards. This is what we will be engraving on. Let's pan so that this is in the center of our screen. Hold the space bar and drag it to the middle of the screen. Let's zoom in too. So zooming, Alt, and scroll the mouse wheel forward with your cursor in the center of your workpiece. Next thing we'll need to do is we'll need to drop in some text. Select the text tool over here. Change your fill to black. That will make the letters black. It doesn't really matter what color you pick, but just pick black. Click to place the text box. Type in your name. I like to highlight it and then go up here to the font selection, and then you can just click the up arrow key on the keyboard to scroll through. Feel free to put a symbol or two in there if you want to. I think we'll go with this one. I think that's the one I did before. Except for I had lowercase letters, but that's fine. Find a text you like, find a font you like, go ahead and pause it, pause the video, find one you like. Then over here, you can change the size. I'm just going to throw a number out there. This is kind of a guess and check thing. 75 is actually perfect size. So what we need to do then is we will grab the black selection cursor over here. Click on that text box. Go up here and we're going to enter a value in for the center of the text box so that it gets centered here. So let's center it vertically first. That one you're going to kind of have to guess because there's extra space above the text and below the text. So just guess and check, kind of like get it vertically aligned where you want it. Go ahead and pause it and do that. The next step then is then up here, this dot represents the center of your text box. This one represents the upper left hand corner. Notice how these values here change. So what we need to do is for the X coordinate here, we're just going to type in 6. Why 6? Well, because your board is 12 inches wide. Halfway between 0 and 12 is 6. So what that did is it lined up the center of your text box right there on the 6. And then the vertical centering, like I said, just eyeball it. There's no easy way to do it with the way the text boxes have extra blank area at the top and at the bottom. All right, well at this point, it's ready to print. So just go to File, Print, Printer, Epilogue Laser Engraver, Setup, Preferences. Go ahead and pause, get to this point. What we're going to do now is we're going to select a raster. Remember, raster is engraving, vector is cutting. Select autofocus. I'm going to change the horizontal to 24, vertical to 18. The recommended settings for the 50-watt laser engraver and engraving text is speed 35 and power 100. If this was a detailed clip art image or text that was in grayscale that would burn at different depths, I would follow those recommendations. However, it's just black, so there's no grayscale. It's just going to burn everything at the same depth, and this is just for learning how to do this. Crank it up to 100, baby. All right, let's get this thing done. Power, it also says 100. This is pine, so that's going to burn pretty deep. If you did something like a maple, which is a super hardwood, it wouldn't burn as deep. So you really don't have to go to 100 power, but let's do it. Engrave direction, we want to select bottom up. Now what's the difference? If you select top down, what that does is that starts engraving at the top of your board, and then it works its way down. What happens though is the head of the engraver, or the head of the carriage, as it engraves, it covers up your image so you can't see it. I prefer to see it as it engraves. Does it matter? No, but I like to see it. So bottom up is nice because then it starts engraving at the bottom and works its way up and kind of reveals your project as it goes. All right, so then we'll hit OK. We'll hit print. Make sure this says 00. And then you'll hit print. When you head over to the laser engraver, make sure that you lower the bed before you put your board in. If somebody's engraving something like a piece of paper before you put your project in, when you go to set the depth, the probe depth, the depth probe is going to collide with your board. So we want to lower the bed like an inch or so, just to make sure that that probe doesn't collide with your board. Because a piece of paper is super thin, right? Your board's a ½ inch. So lower that bed before you put your board in. After you lower it, hit the return button, put your board in, then you can go ahead and hit play and run your print. Remember to turn on the fume extractor and the air pump as well. Before you put your board into the upper left-hand corner there, make sure that you drop down the bed, push this button and it'll go into focus mode, which it's already in focus mode. Then push this down arrow to drop the bed down. That way you can make sure that this probe here won't collide with the top of your board. If somebody was engraving something like paper, it'll collide with your board. Once you're done focusing, dropping down the table, hit the return button. Make sure that you turn on the fume extractor. Turn on the air pump. Make sure your board's in the upper left-hand corner. Put this down, put the lid down, and hit play. One thing you can do with this too that's pretty awesome is you could spray paint the top of this and then have your letters on the inside be a different color than the base color. But if you do that, you would probably want to have the edges covered in tape too, which would mean you'd probably end up needing to have 2 pieces of tape. Here's our finished product. Perfect.